Hey y'all, it's Laura. Welcome back to another Cocoa Vanilla Studio video, and this time we are diving into an older collection, Sunkissed, that is kind of a tropical themed, kind of tropical vibes, and that was perfect for this month's mood board slash August challenge. And the absolutely gorgeous inspiration is on the blog and in the Facebook group, so definitely go check that out and give it a whirl. But Sunkissed worked perfectly with it. It had all those tropical vibes, and I had these really cute pictures of my twins at school, and they had kind of a field day. And for this field day, they went and dumped a ton of sand in the grass and got some buckets and shovels and let them go at it. And they had a blast. They had so much fun. And the picture in the background here, so the two pictures there are actually a landscape photo that the teacher took. And I really wanted 3 profile photos. And so what I did was I cut it in half because there were no children in the middle of the picture. I didn't feel bad about cutting it in half so that no children were kiboshed, cut out of the photo, but I was able to make Olivia, which is one of my twins, the focal image and the more important image in this photo by breaking up the background photo into 2 smaller pictures. Worked out quite nicely. I think it looks really cute. It kind of looks like she is on a pedestal of sorts in the middle of this scene, and it's just a really fun technique, a little way to play with your photos. So I've created a little line or little shelf for my photos to sit on, and I'm trimming this down so that it will fit pretty much perfectly underneath of my photos. I really wanted this pink strip to be kind of the one that stood out a little bit more, and then the blue to be a little bit of background. And so I decided to pull those photos back off and realign them. And this is one of the reasons that I don't always press down my photos onto the taped edge until I'm sure that that's where it's going to go, because a lot of double-sided tape is initially repositionable, but once you press it down, it isn't. It doesn't work that much. It's very hard to pull it up without ripping the paper once you've pressed it down and put that pressure on it. So now it's pressed down, it's not going anywhere. These beautiful, beautiful gold glitter words. Oh my gosh, it was one of my favorite parts of this collection, and I was thrilled to be able to play with them. So I had to pull those out first and decide what I wanted to use. When I was creating my clusters, I knew that I was going to do 2 floral clusters around the bottom corners of these 3 photos, and so I decided to try to tuck some of these leftover ephemera pieces that I had at the end. So this kit has still has quite a bit in it, but I had this one pack of ephemera that was almost used up, and so I was like, I'm gonna try to get as much from this ephemera pack onto this page. So I tried a few different things. I fought with it a little bit only to pull it back out and go, nah, that wasn't the right thing. But I loved this little bit of a rainbow and a sunshine theme. I thought that was perfect for these photos because it was a bright, beautiful, gorgeous day, and it worked lovely to have that little towel that said sunshine just peeking out of the top. So I do have a triangular clustering design going on here. So I've got a cluster on the bottom left, a cluster on the bottom right, and a cluster at the top of my photos. Now, quite often we do things in 3s or in odd numbers on layouts because it is more interesting to the eye, and your brain likes to see and find the center of things. And when you have odd numbers, there's always a middle, right? So when you have 3 things, you have 1 on the left, 1 on the right, 1 in the middle. When you have 5 things, you have 2 on the left, 2 on the right, 1 in the middle. And your brain finds that very, very satisfying to be able to find that middle. Now in this case, I will technically have a 4th cluster near my title, but for the purposes of the photo embellishing itself, there are the 3. These clusters were fussy cut from one of the papers in this collection, and I do a lot of fussy cutting with my papers. for a couple of reasons. I've had people ask, well, why do you do so much fussy cutting? It seems like a lot of work, takes a lot of time. Like, why? One of the reasons is it stretches my collections for so much longer. And I have a ton of embellishments that only cost me a little bit of time and a piece of paper. Whereas, as we all know, stretching those collections, stretching your budget is an amazing way to keep your scrapping costs low. And one of the things I love about Cocoa Vanilla is that Zoe knows this. Zoe uses this to our advantage, and she gives us lots of papers that we can fussy cut. I can't tell you how many times I have sat down to prepare a collection for scrapping, because I always take my fussy cutting papers and I sit down for a couple of evenings and just fussy cut like crazy, get them all prepped up so that I can just do this. I can just scrap really quickly. I don't have to pull out the scissors to fussy cut out the floral that I need while I'm trying to scrap. I already have it ready to go. And I love the fact that she gives us so many options for fussy cutting. She gives us cut-aparts that have embellishments embedded right in them, like border strips and flags and tags, and I love that. And then she also gives us floral clusters that we can very easily cut out. She gives us individual flowers on a background that we can cut out. Titles. She loves to give us titles on pattern papers that we can cut out. So I think one of the reasons that I love Cocoa Vanilla so much is because it is such a versatile company. All of the papers that come out are just so beautiful. They're very much my own personal style. I love them, but also you can do all this fussy cutting and you don't have to buy every single pack of embellishments that comes with it. You can buy the ones you love, but you also have this option to fussy cut out some embellishments and save yourself a little bit of money too. And I think that that's a really, really nice option. I really enjoy it. So as you can see, we've got our clusters coming together, and I have a nice big cluster across the top. I have my smaller cluster on the left and right, and down the little center in between those two clusters at the bottom, I'm going to pull out something a little different. Now I have this gold glitter title, right? And I wanted to tie that in to other places on the layout. So this is how I started doing that. I started pulling off these little extra bits, which were just the little bits that were like in the center of the L, in the center of the O, and I used them to create kind of some sort of almost like droplets of water, but really they're kind of emphasis for those clusters, little emphasis marks for the clusters. And then I decided to bring in some punched gold glitter paper and use a little bit of that to fill in the gap between my two clusters. So you see that in just a minute. But first, I brought out the gorgeous clear stickers. Now, I've had a couple of people who've asked me, how do you use clear stickers? I don't know how to use them. I find the easiest way to use them is on a white background. That's just a personal preference. You can stick them directly onto the white background and that little clear outline around the shape just disappears. And especially when you combine them with a more 3D element like fussy cut florals, you can tuck those clear stickers behind the fussy cut florals, and it gives a layered effect. It gives more of a 3D look because you have a bottom layer and a top layer and then a middle layer often as well. And this really helps to add some depth and dimension to your layout, and I love, love, love the way that that looks. I've also used some clear stickers underneath of my title, again, trying to give them a layered look. Now, underneath of that title, I am going to come back and add some journaling lines, and so that title has a multi-purpose there at the bottom. It is not only my title, it is also journaling spot as well, and I think this helps to really balance out the photo heavy, embellishment heavy top with the smaller title and journaling spot at the bottom. And I will tape and glue all of this down off camera. If you have trouble putting things back where they began, so where you had it perfectly set up and then you go to glue things down and nothing wants to go where it was before, my biggest tip is to take a picture of the layout exactly how you want it, and then go in and glue and remove one layer at a time Whether you start at the top or you start at the bottom, doesn't really matter, whatever you're more comfortable with, but use your photo and your phone as an example to work from. And that helps me to get everything back exactly where I want it. Even though I do sometimes change it, that's usually on purpose. It's rarely because I don't remember. Now here are those tiny little punched stars. When I am done using a piece of glitter paper and I have just those scraps left over, I like to pull out my tiny punches and punch a bunch of little shapes out of those scraps so they don't get wasted. And then I have these little bitty embellishments for my scattering phase at the end of a layout. I do scattering and splattering. Scattering is using tiny fine details. Here I use those little stars. I use some tiny little fussy cut florals and the little bitty hearts around each cluster. And that's my scattering. And then my splattering is done in 2 phases with controlled splatter using Nuvo drops, just like I am right now. And then I'll come in with some gold ink spray and do an uncontrolled splatter around my photos. I do try to cover up my photos because gold ink spray landing on their faces is not exactly ideal, but most of the time I can cover up the photos just enough that they go around it instead. Now, if I was a patient person, I would take the time to find a piece of paper or a piece of chipboard or something that was big enough to cover my photos so they for sure would be protected. But I am not a patient person and decide to risk it just a little bit. So here is the finished layout. I hope you guys enjoy it and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Until next time, bye y'all.